have what I think is an awesome presentation in front of you, which is the appraisers coming up. Who would love to have some information from an appraiser, right? Heck yeah, right? So I am so excited that Marty is going to do this for us. Now, most people don't know who appraisers are. Like, most people call me like, do you know any appraisers? Do they have to get a divorce appraisal or that kind of thing? And I would be, I'm actually kind of curious. Has anyone heard of Marty Bodell? Can you raise your hand? Look at that. That's amazing for an appraiser. You know what I mean? So he is well known in the industry. I've known his name for like 20 years. I'm kind of excited. I actually get to meet him in person today. There's actually one realtor here today that was like, I am so excited. I've been sending him my stuff for 14 years, and I'm actually here today to meet Marty. Can you believe that? So I'm like, that is amazing. So just a little bit about him. He does own Bodell Appraisals, him and his brother. And, you know, I love working with people who are just good people. And he probably doesn't want me telling this, but one of my loan officers, she works with him a lot on some humanitarian projects. And one of the things he does is he collects bikes, and him and his kids fix them in his homes. And then they go and deliver them to refugees and low-income housing. And one of the people that he delivered the bikes to help him get to school is now in medical school right now. So it makes a difference, the little things that we do. So I'm going to turn the time over to Marty, and I'll let you talk about the question and answer. So.
Okay. Again, my name is Marty Bodell. I grew up with a dad who was an appraiser. So what that meant is from the age of 10, I would go with him and measure properties. I'd hold the dumb end of the tape measure back when we actually used tape measures. Now we use lasers and LiDAR, things like that, to accurately determine square footage. I will tell you, I remember charting out and graphing, sketching with a red pen on graph paper a home and counting the individual squares to determine the square footage of a home. That was back before computers. I remember when we first got computers, and I was so excited, and my dad taught me an MS-DOS-based program on how to sketch. I remember learning from an early age about how to analyze comparable sales, what is truly comparable to the subject property, and how to find those best sales. Now, for some of you that have been around the industry an old time, you guys can remember, and when I say this, you'll follow me. But if you go to the city section of the MLS, and instead of typing a city name, let's say you type 105. Does anybody know what happens if you type 105 into the city field? Anybody? Raise your hand if you know it. What comes up? Close. Draper comes up. The reason why is because back in the day in the old MLS, when it was MS-DOS based, we had to type those things in, and we had to know all of those numbers. And I still have a lot of those numbers memorized from my history. So let's get into it. I've been appraising on my own. I served a mission for my church between 94 and 96 in Santiago, Chile. The day after I got back was July 4th. My dad gave me that day off, thankfully. The next day after that was July 5th, and I started appraising. I've been appraising ever since. I was actually accepted to medical school when I decided to not go. I've appraised everything from single-family homes, vacant land, industrial, commercial. I've done large shopping centers. I've done small remnant parcels. I've done bars. I've done churches. You name it, I've appraised it. The one thing I haven't appraised, actually, that I'm really looking forward to, two things. Number one, I've never appraised an airport, and I've also never appraised a bowling alley. Both of those are very specialized fields that I have no experience in appraising. Everything else I've done. Okay, I've been asked to talk about a couple of questions. Number one, low appraisals. How do you handle a low appraisal? Okay. First thing on my list, and I really want to stress this, when the appraiser calls you to schedule the appointment, the very first thing you should say is, if there's a problem with the appraised value, will you contact me? I love it when agents do that to me because it shows me that they care. It shows me that for them, it doesn't matter if they understand this, right? They understand this business. There may be something that I'm missing, some comparable sale that some other agent mislabeled. In fact, just yesterday I was asked to appraise to help a real estate agent named Marcella do an appraisal on a property because she said, I can't figure out why it's not selling. And we have a joke in our office. There's only one reason why properties don't sell, and that's price, right? If she were to sell it for 20 bucks, I'd slap the money down regardless if it had meth and the ceiling was collapsing in. I'd go in and buy it today. So we go in and do the appraisal for her. Number one problem that she had, it's listed on the MLS as a 2-story. It's a split entry. As an appraiser, sometimes we don't see those things. If it's mislabeled, we need that. So you need to ask the appraiser and say, please contact me if there are any problems with value. Okay? Number 2, ask if you can provide your comparable sales. I will tell you, 99% of agents do an amazing job. You work so hard trying to figure out the value of the properties, and I know for most of you that is the hardest part of your job. You guys hate sitting in the office and grinding and doing all that boring work that frankly we do as appraisers all day, every day. When that happens, that's where you earn your money. That's where you figure out. And now is more important than ever, right? A year and a half ago, it was just throw it up on the MLS and it's going to sell. Heck, I mean, I heard people that were waiting around at Home Depot by the for sale by owner signs because they would follow those people back to the homes, or they would just approach them and they would say, while they're picking up the sign, are you selling a house? Yes. Great. I'll buy it. I heard those stories, and they would contact me and say, hey, we just want to make sure that we're paying market value. Can you do the appraisal? And I said, sure, happy to. Right? I can do appraisals for, and I've done them for UWM, I've done them for most of the large lenders around. I do a lot of appraisals for individuals who are just saying, hey, I need to know if this is worth what I'm paying for it. In fact, I have 3 on my plate right now that are cash buyers. Okay? One of which, weirdly enough, is buying a $1.7 million home, unrepresented. Okay? Yeah, none of that boo should come to me. I don't want that energy, right? That goes to the individual who made that choice. But I will tell you, those people are still out there. Those cash buyers are out there. And I love helping agents. I love referring people to really good agents because I know a lot of them. A lot of the best agents will contact me beforehand and say, hey, help me select my comparable sales. I'm happy to do that. If you need help, I'll give you my number a little bit later. Okay, last thing. We get the, I can't read it. All right, show the home. Right, last bit of advice is show the home. The first most important person that you're showing the home to is the buyer. The second most is the appraiser, right? You have to sell the home to the appraiser. What that means, lights on, pets crated. And by the pets crated, I'll show you the scars on my legs from 3 dogs that have never bitten anybody before, but some reason decided to go after the appraiser, okay? It happens. I buy new pants because they slobber or whatever. I have pets. I love them. But sometimes when I'm in their space, they get angry. Crate it, okay? But show the home. Turn the lights on. Do all the tricks that you guys do. I was talking to one agent that has this magic painting, and she said, every time I hang this painting in a house, it sells within a week. I'm like, hey, whatever. People's religion is their own thing, right? I'm not going to comment on it. But she hung that up there. I know agents that like to go in and when they're showing homes, they'll bake bread or they'll bake cookies. I love it. Do that for the appraiser, right? Now, let me tell you this. You cannot bribe the appraiser, okay? I've literally been offered a $100,000 bribe before, okay? $100,000 cash, okay? My response to them, which still is like, it's peak brilliance in my life, I said, if you can pay me enough money to buy my soul out of hell, then you're in. And they were like, hey, you don't have to go there. And I said, hey, this is my career. I've been doing this, at that point, I've been doing it for 15 years. I'm at 27 now, and I said, I plan on doing it a lot longer than that. It's not my job to tell you how to do your job. Let me do my job. and I will appraise it according to how I think, okay? So if it's water, trust me, if you're offering me a water bottle, it's not going to change my opinion. It's not going to change the appraised value, okay? If there are cookies there, I'm a sucker for cookies, right? That doesn't mean I'm going to change your appraised value, but it does mean that I'll probably eat the cookie, okay? All right, let me move on to the next one. Okay, appraisal comes in low. What do? What's the first step? Okay, you got to go through the grief process first, right? The anger, the crying, the punching the wall, whatever you need to. Then the next, get a copy of the appraisal. Okay, look at it. Those of you that have a hard time, and trust me, appraisals are boring. I write them all day, every day, and they are so boring. They are just filled with information, and I spend so much time making sure the information is right so that Melinda's people at UWM can go through and not find any errors. I will tell you, there is no such thing as a perfect appraisal. Every appraisal has errors. I've admitted it on the stand in court. I was in the middle of a divorce appraisal, and the other side had their expert, and I was up on the stand talking. And I said, hey, Your Honor, I just want to let you know I did find an error on my appraisals. I've been sitting up here on the stand. I made a fireplace adjustment in the wrong direction. It would influence this one comparable cell this much. However, it would not change the appraised value. Okay? Trust me, a perfect appraisal does not exist. But what that means is it means you have to understand appraisals. You need to be able to understand that page 1 of your typical single-family home, or what we used to call single-family home. Apparently, we can no longer refer to them as single-family homes. We have to refer to them as one-unit properties because single-family home is prejudice. So I'm trying, please forgive me. But a one-unit property, as you're appraising that, the first page of that appraisal describes that property. You start off describing the subject property. Its legal description, parcel number, taxes, listing history, contract. Then you describe the neighborhood, then the site, then the improvements. Okay? It's a very logical process. And for those of you that have an appraisal, you pull it up in front of you. Nobody ever notices this except for appraisers. Along the left line, the left edge of the appraisal are black bars. Inside the black bar, it describes every single section of what's going on in there. Very few real estate agents even know that that exists. But if you pull it up, you'll see it on every appraisal. We put those in there so that you know. Okay? Now, so the very first thing, you have to review the subject information. If the appraiser missed obvious things, view, it's located on a golf course. It has 8 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms instead of 7 and 2.5. Make them know. Let the appraiser know. Most appraisers are willing to correct their mistakes. We want to do good appraisals. We want to do perfect appraisals. It's this endless pursuit that we have of perfection. Okay? Now, the next thing that we have on there is you got to review the comparable sales. Were the comparable sales the same ones that you used in your CMA? If they are, great. Then start going through and looking at the individual data. If it's not, you got to figure out what you missed and what the appraiser may have missed. There may be a comparable sale that you're aware of in the neighborhood that should have been included. Okay? Worst case scenario, call another appraiser. Every one of you should have an appraiser on speed dial that becomes your go-to guy or girl, or anything in between, right? But you need to have somebody that you can call and you can say, what am I missing? What did I not get? As you do that, the appraiser can go through the appraisal a lot faster than you can. It typically takes me about 30 minutes to do a fairly in-depth appraisal analysis. Okay? And right now, that's not a problem for me to spend 30 minutes for an agent that sends me 10 deals a month. Okay? Which I do on a regular basis. Okay? That's the last thing. Last tip on this. Please remember, the appraiser does not have to make any changes to their appraisal, but use honey, not vinegar. You're going to find it's a lot easier when you come to the appraiser out of a spirit of collaboration rather than a spirit of accusation. Okay? I'm reminded that I was supposed to ask if any of you have questions. We have microphones. We have a couple of other topics we're going to go over. We're going to go over ADUs, accessory dwelling units. We're going to go over solar panels, and we're going to go over comparable sales selections. Okay? Proper way to do that. If anyone has a question for me, okay, just raise your hand. They'll throw a mic. Any questions at this point? Anybody? Fantastic. We'll keep going. Okay, ADUs, accessory dwelling units. Okay, I give a definition. Accessory dwelling unit is typically any additional living area independent of the primary dwelling that may have been added to, created within, or detached from a one-unit dwelling. The ADU must provide for living, sleeping, cooking, and bathroom facilities and be on the same parcel as, not the single-family home. What does it say? One unit, right? Because again, we can't use single-family homes anymore. As appraisers, they're really hammering us on bias. Interesting fact for you. Big topic in appraising right now is appraisal bias. If you were to guess, how many lawsuits do you think there are nationwide that involve appraiser bias? Throw me out a couple of numbers. What do you guys think? 100? How many? 2,000? Okay. Anybody else want to make a guess? 10,000. Okay. There's two. There are two appraisals that they are currently involved in lawsuits regarding the appraiser bias. I'll be honest. I don't care if you're black, white, if you're Native American. I don't care if you're 2 gay guys or 3 gay guys. I've appraised it. It doesn't matter to me. I've appraised polygamous homes. I've appraised homes that have marijuana grow operations. I've appraised homes that I'm sure if I knew a little bit more about meth operations, it would be a meth house or a meth cook, right? I don't care. I'm there to appraise the house. Like most of you, truthfully, I don't care. I'm just there to do an appraisal and to do a good job. And I don't care about any of that stuff. Now, back to the ADUs, okay? Does an ADU have to be detached from the primary residence to be considered an ADU? No. If you read the definition, and this comes from the Fannie Mae Selling Guide, it says that it can be built within, okay? Thus, is a basement kitchen, does that define a property as having an ADU? Maybe, right? Appraisers are always careful. We never like to get boxed into a corner. Here's a picture, okay, you can tell that's a basement kitchen, okay? If you couldn't tell, come and talk to me afterwards and I'll explain some of the signs that you can see on that, okay? Now, I thought I'm just going to do something fun. I'm going to do a little search parameter, and this is how appraisers, when we nerd out and we like to figure out values and adjustments, this is what we do. So my search parameters are sold properties in South Jordan, and I put SFR. Again, I'm sorry, I should have put 1 unit, but there wasn't space. I put the year built as 2000 to 2010, and I put the square footage as 2,000 to 4,000 square feet, okay? Properties that were noted with 1 kitchen had a median sales price of $615,000. Properties with 2 kitchens were noted as a median sales price of $658,000. What does that indicate? It indicates a basement kitchen, which is probably the best sign of an ADU, increases the value of that property $40,000. Okay? Now, again, this is the geek in me that loves numbers and loves to climb in and understand this stuff. That represents 121 total sales within that. Literally 0 of all of those sales indicated that there was an ADU. Okay? So, I actually decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig into this data a little bit closer. 3 of these 19 sales, I narrowed down the search parameters, 3 of the 19 sales that indicated no ADU and only 1 kitchen had a second kitchen and an exterior entry in addition to a bathroom and a bedroom. What does that mean? Say it again. Bad data. Okay? The problem is is that in that instance, okay, this is actually the picture from that sale, okay? It has an exterior entrance. It has that. The property was undersold by about $40,000, okay? Now, $40,000 to a seller is a lot of money. $40,000 to a buyer is a lot of money. $40,000 to you as agents is still a lot of money, okay? That's money in your pocket. I will tell you, I was amazed at how often this happens. As I was gathering this data, I actually had a conversation with a friend who is selling, her mom is selling her home. Mom was referred by a friend to list the home. Agent failed to put that it had a second kitchen in the basement. Agent failed to note that there was an exterior entrance. Property was originally listed at $790,000. They finally accepted an offer at $725,000. Okay? You're talking about a $65,000 drop. Now, what happened in that? The agent correctly did their CMA because the CMA indicated the basement kitchen. And there was a value that was indicated. I disagree with the value that was put, but that was there. The exterior entrance was noted. The value for an ADU was noted in the CMA. However, it was not included on the MLS. The buying agent specifically went through every sale within a 3-mile radius, went through all of the pictures of the properties on there. And the agent, who I know, Jill Sadler, a lot of you know Jill Sadler, Jill found that home and said, this has a basement kitchen and an exterior entrance. This has an ADU. This is perfect for my clients. She made a cash offer at the start because she knew that she needed to get it locked down. Okay? It happens. Bad data in led to a bad result. She was specifically looking, and her clients were willing to pay significantly higher than what they did to have that ADU. Okay? Be careful with that, right? Next, solar panels. By the way, any questions on ADUs? Yes? Oh, good question. Is there additional value for having a walkout basement? What do you guys think? Yes. Yeah. Okay, what does a walkout basement typically signify? And in the next section, my fourth section, we'll get into the 3 main value driving factors. Okay? But one of them is actually view. We'll get to that. Don't make me jump ahead, right? I'm going to stay in this lane, but yes, it does. Yeah. Walkout basement or a walk-up basement, right? That picture on the last slide indicated a walk-up basement where they had just done the dugout steps from the outside going down. Okay? Any other questions at this point? Yeah? Ooh, good question. How do you value a detached ADU? You want the long answer? I'll give you the short answer. Give it the same value as you do the rest of the house. Okay? You're going to give that additional value for the ADU on top of the square footage, but generally you lump that in to the same square footage as the main property, which means if it's above grade square footage, you count it as above grade. If it's below grade, it's below grade. Okay? All right. I thought I saw, yeah?
If it is like in a home and it's in the basement, does there have to be a separation, like a door of separation or anything between the upstairs unit and downstairs?
Okay. The question was, does there have to be a door of separation between the upstairs unit and the downstairs unit? Okay. I don't even know how to use this. Can we go back? Yeah, we can. Okay. We'll go back to this. There may have been attitude created within or detached from a primary one-unit dwelling. The ADU must provide for living, sleeping, cooking, and bathroom facilities be on the same parcel as the primary. Was that part of the definition? No. Does it have to have it? No. It does not. Okay? I'll give you something that a lot of you may not understand. I did an appraisal on a property right across the street from Liberty Park. Owner was doing, had weirdly divided it up inside and had 4 units inside the single family home that he was renting on a nightly basis. Okay? Huge topic. We can talk about that on another day. If they have me come back next year, we can discuss nightly rentals. Okay? But that owner went to the bank and said, I need a loan for this property. Look at this. I'm making all this money on the nightly rental. I ended up having to do an analysis for the bank for the property as a fourplex, as a duplex, and as a single family home. Okay? Now, I'm going to cut the duplex out because it's right in the middle, but I'm going to say single family home versus fourplex. I need a raise of hands, and everybody's got to raise your hand. If you think the highest and best use of the property was a single family home, raise your hand. If you think the highest and best use of the property was as a fourplex, raise your hand. I'll give you a hint. My hand is down. And I was the only one that had the hand up as a single family. Conventional wisdom told me and everybody else that the value of that property should have been higher as a fourplex. However, when I analyzed it, it was not. Reason why, primary driver is still end users. It's not investors. Every single time I have run the analysis of single family duplex, fourplex on a property that can, the higher price per square foot, the higher absolute value, any metric that I use, the single family home has the highest. Okay? We are starting to see a movement of the market where the highest value is, back to your question, this is where it's all wrapped. I promise I'm coming back to it, right? Is a single family home with an ADU. That's going to get you your highest value. Okay? All right. Any other question? Oh, yep, right here.
Part of that definition did not include an exterior entrance.
It does not. Does an ADU have to have an exterior entrance? Based on the definition itself, no. Does it add value? My opinion, yes, and I can show you data. It does not have to have an exterior entrance. There are thousands of homes in Sugar House, in the ABC streets, okay, that have, back then in that pre and post World War II era, they have that side entry that is right at the top of the stairs that goes down to the basement, or you turn right or left to go into the kitchen. All of you have seen it. If you've seen 5 houses up there, you've seen it. I have seen a lot of those properties where they're converting that into it. Does not have to have it for an ADU. Okay? Question in the back.
Yeah, I just wanted a little clarification on the $40,000 difference for the kitchen. Was that just, is it on?
Yep.
Okay. Was that just for a kitchen, or was that unit an actual accessory dwelling unit? Because I'm trying to gauge a 6% increase for a second kitchen versus an actual ADU. Would that be 10%, or would that also be 6% increase in value?
Ooh, I love it when people dive into numbers like percentages rather than absolute numbers. Understand this. That analysis that I did, let me go back to it. Yep, there we are. That $40,000 only fits in that area, okay? That is that parameter. I've seen it as high as 50,000. I've seen it as low as 5. There's always a range, okay? Please do not misinterpret my example that I have here as meaning a second kitchen alone adds $40,000. I am not stating that, okay? Is it an ADU or is it the second kitchen? I will tell you 95 times out of 100, 95% of the time, if there is a basement kitchen, there's some type of a self-contained unit that also has a bedroom and a bathroom down there. So if you want to talk more neighborhood specific, call me. I'll give you guys my number. We can chat, okay? And by the way, for all of you, feel free. I literally I work right now about 10 hours a day. I spend about 6 hours a day in front of a computer. I spend 3 to 3.5 hours a day driving, and I spend the rest of the time actually inspecting the house, right? Walking through, measuring, photographing. What that means is I got basically 3 and 3.5 hours a day that I'm listening to everything. NPR, Howard Stern, Dr. Laura. I listen to everything. right? Because that's how bored I am when I'm driving in my car. It's tolling. And so when people call and ask for advice, I'm happy to help, okay? And if I can't, I'll tell you to call me when I can, okay? Other questions? Oh, back here.
So, talking about the exterior entrances or different types of entrances, if it is from a basement going up to a garage, what does that count as?
It counts as an exterior entrance.
Just the same as any other?
As an outside, yeah. Weirdly, I actually found something out. I'm not going to get political. I'm just going to tell you, I had an interesting discussion with a guy who's a huge gun rights advocate. And he told me something that I wasn't aware of. He said, you realize if somebody comes into your house, you can shoot them. But if they go into your garage, you can't. Which, again, I'll let the politicians do what the politicians do. What's that? Again, whether that is or not, I don't. I'm not getting political. All I'm saying is that the definition of the house is inside. So if it's an exterior entrance into the garage, that is considered, like on a split entry, a lot of split entries have that where the garage is incorporated into the basement. And there is the door that goes from the basement into the garage. That counts as an exterior entrance. Okay? Question?
So I'm just curious what trends you're seeing right now in the market as far as high, low. Are people pricing things correctly? What are you seeing?
I got to be careful with this answer. As much as I love politics, I'm not a part of it, but it's fascinating for me. But most of the time, agents do a really good job at pricing. Thanks. Yeah. There are times that they're not. Now, let me tell you this. Pricing. Historically speaking, when does the biggest appreciation jump happen in the calendar year for, we'll call it all of Utah? Well, we'll call it northern Utah, I-70 north. Let's do this, okay? If you think that the jump happens between first quarter and second quarter, raise your hand. If you think the jump happens between second quarter and third quarter, raise your hands. Third and fourth, raise your hand. Fourth and first, raise your hand. All right. Actual answer is between first quarter and second quarter of the year. If you look at the historical averages, and you got to take out the COVID years, right? 2020 to 2022 was just bonkers. I tried to get a judge once to order that the market was bananas at the time, and she refused. But it was a funny exchange that she and I had. But if you look at it, that is historically when it happens. What happens is it ends up taking that jump between the first and the second quarter, and then there's a slight depreciation that happens. And then it takes another jump, and there's a slight depreciation. If you look, it is like clockwork between about 2010 to 2020, and that 10-year span, that happened every single time when you chart it out, okay? So, answer your question. In my opinion, and based on the data that I've seen, we are back in a very cyclical, normal market. What that means is you're going to start seeing depreciation. People that really need to sell are going to start slashing their properties for the next probably 5 months. Slowest time for us as appraisers, and I always tell people when I'm training them new, if you're going to take a vacation, take it in January. Because December, January, and up to about President's Day in February is our slowest time. So typically between Thanksgiving and President's Day is when I try to take my vacations, okay? What that means is we're about 3 weeks behind you guys, okay? You guys will probably start to pick up, and based on all my conversations, about February is where people are looking. They'll start thinking about it in January. By February, they're serious and going under contract, okay? Any other questions? We're halfway through, and I've got like 9.5 minutes left, okay? So we haven't even gotten to pricing or solar panels. Any other questions? All right. Solar panels. If it's leased, we're going to go through solar panels quickly because this is a fairly minor issue. If it's leased, no value added. If it is financed, the value is added only after the loan is paid, which means that the buyer gets the value, the seller does not. Okay? That is, and I can show the data on it if you're interested. Owned with no loan. Value added depending on the age of the solar panels. They typically have a lifespan of about 20 years. Some solar panel companies, I get calls all the time from solar salespeople that want me to put solar on my house. And I will give you a hint, I haven't. And there's a reason why. That's because I understand math, okay? So, sorry, that was not meant as harsh as it sounded, okay? But they only last 20 years is the typical lifespan of it. And easy way to figure it out is the reduction of the solar bill. I always love talking to people who tell me I have no solar bill. And I'll say, do you really not? No. It's $0. Well, does anybody know what the minimum payment is if you have solar panels? What you still have to pay? $9 to $10. Okay? You still have to pay something to be hooked up to it. Okay? Here's my solar panel analysis, very similar to the last one. Okay? Started in South Jordan. We use homes that sold with 2,000 to 4,000 square feet. Year built 2020 to back to 2000. Median sales price with solar panels $630. Median sales price without solar panels $635. By the way, if anybody wants to nerd out with me and talk about why I use median instead of average, come see me afterwards and I'll explain it. But it's a statistical probability. Okay. What that means is that solar panels really don't add that much value. They may for an individual consumer, okay? And I am not one to tell you whether or not you should put solar panels on your house. But I will tell you, I've seen it as low as $0. I have literally seen a fully paid off 3-year-old solar panel system where the data indicated that there was no value added, okay? I have seen it as high as $20,000. I have seen people literally lose money. I did an appraisal, I speak Spanish, did an appraisal for this just great Mexican family up in Rose Park. And they were so excited because they had just spent $48,000 putting solar panels on their home in Rose Park. And I said, how did you spend that much money? And she said, oh, well, part of it, they ran the numbers and said we didn't have enough roof space for all of the solar that we were going to need. And so they told us that we also had to build a shed for solar panels. I know that there are good solar panel salespeople, but there are some that I vehemently disagree with. And every time they call me to tell me about how much it adds, and they cite the Berkeley study that claims it, I can break down with them, and I know the Berkeley study better than they do, and I can show them where the flaws are and why it's wrong. I will tell you again, generally speaking, solar panels, you're typically around about $5,000 to $10,000 is the only bump you're getting. Okay, you're not getting $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000. Let me rephrase that. I have never seen any evidence in any one single transaction where it's given $30,000 in credit. Okay, and I see a lot of different properties. Okay, one way to do it that's fairly easy is you take the annual electrical bill, you subtract $110 from that. 110 is basically the annual fee that you have to pay to stay hooked up to it, which is, again, depending on the municipality, somewhere between $9 and $10. Multiply that by 12, okay? And then you multiply that number by 8. Anybody know why I choose the factor of 8 to multiply it by? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Sorry, say that? Nope. Anybody else? Yeah. The same thing, and that answer is no. I'm just going to be honest, it's not. It's because, do you guys know what the average length of home ownership is along the Wasatch Front? 8 years. 8 years. That's where that comes from. That's the math that most people do when they really understand it, is they sit down and they say, okay, what's my solar bill going to be? And it ends up, that is very, very close. Okay? That's as good a formula as I have seen at this point in that. Okay? All right. Next one, comparable sales. Okay, this is the part that I've got 4 minutes left. I'm going to try to rush through this, so no more questions, right? I'm just going to shut you all down. But we start out, very first thing, land to value ratio. Okay, if you're doing a horse property, large acreage, okay, you have to figure that separately because the land is the driving factor on the value. Okay, you have to only compare it to other horse properties, right? If you're out in Rose Canyon or Butterfield Canyon or in some of those areas in Hooper where you have large acreage, you have to stick with generally the acreage size, okay? Now, let's move on to the next one, location, okay? You guys have all heard the old adage, there are only 3 things that are important in real estate. Let's all say them together. Location, location, location. It matters. It's huge. I've seen properties quadruple in value based on one side of the street to the other, okay? And people will question me and say, are you serious? And I'll say, yeah, I can show you the data. It's not a question of I set the price. It's that there is market evidence that show it. For example, here in Sandy, if you're on 9700 South on the east side of 13th East versus the west side of 13th East, there's about a 5% difference. Doesn't matter that you're a half a block away, but there is a difference there. And that difference is measurable. We see it all the time, okay? There's the general macro area. There is also the micro location, okay? We're talking about backing a golf course. Weirdly, and I've never done this before, I was so excited to do this appraisal. I appraised a property that has its own lake, and the lake is not small. It's about 5 acres. And it's big enough that they have jet skis in their Quonset hut that they back out and can ride on their own property. Okay? That's a pretty cool feature. I would love to have it. Now, if I tell you it's in Duchesne, and now you're an hour from the nearest grocery store, nearest gas station is about 20 minutes away, makes it a little less desirable, right? There are several water ski lakes around and wakeboard lakes. Love them. But you try to match those locational things, okay? View. I have seen view add as much as 20%. And I'm talking paired sales data where the same home sold on one side of the street with the view versus the other side of the street without a view, okay? It's every one of these things that I'm giving you is a range, okay? But it literally can go up 20%, I've seen it that high. I've seen it deduct. If it's one of those that backs your neighbor's wall, or I saw somebody in Bluffdale or somewhere out there, Riverton is building a big, huge detached garage that's concrete, those things can impact your value, okay? Quality, each bump adds about 10 to 20% in difference, okay? You got to separate out above grade square footage versus below grade square footage and the basement finish, okay? Do not fall into the trap of price per square foot. That is an oversimplification. You come at me with price per square foot, I tune out the rest of everything you say because I assume you don't understand real estate, okay? Secondary, and I'm being serious. Never, ever, ever do that. You're taking out of my time, but I'm going to let you ask a question back there. If it's a livable area and it qualifies as a livable area, the area in the detached garage, you have to get it approved through the city or the county or whoever, okay? Okay, all of those other things are secondary factors, age, condition, bedrooms, bathrooms. By the way, we do not make adjustments for number of bedrooms. I know that comes as a shock to you. Bedrooms, typically the highest sale in any market area has the fewest number of bedrooms every time I've analyzed it. So please stop making adjustments for bedrooms, okay? If you have any questions, call me. Here's my information. Feel free to reach out to me anytime for any question. By the way, I do use Facebook a lot. Facebook Messenger I love. If you want to call me, text me, email me, there's all my information. I do not do Tinder or Grindr or Snapchat. So if you're looking for me on any of those, you're not going to find me. Thanks, everybody.